Hello, everybody. Pippa, can you say hello? Is that hello in Pippa-ese? Bob, can you say hello? I know you can. I know you can.
And say hello. You can say hello, Bob. Babalu Bob. Bob's a good boy, and then he can give kisses.
Bob, leave her alone. We're not going to have any of that today. Come here. Come here. No, you're not going to mess with her. Now, on the other side. Go on. Get over there. Get over there. Leave her alone. Hey, Bob, talking to you. You big pest. You're a big pest. Okay, you're behaving. Hi, Pippa. Okay, Pip. Watch out, or I'll give you a timeout. No, it isn't quite like that, is it? That's not how we use it, is it?
Pippa.
We got Pippa with us today, and Babalu, and I have to turn the camera around, so bear with me. I have contacted them and asked them to put a button on the front screen, so I don't have to hit 16 buttons to get here. There we go. And we have Mander. The Mander bird. Lucy. Yeah, you had to open your eye wide when I said that, didn't you? Everybody knows that guy. Cecil. You have Jasmine. And Sugar. Gesundheit.
Suddenly, the Moluccan aunties look so busy. Plotting something. So let's greet some chatters who arrived. First, Jem and Jamie. Hi and welcome. Then we have Rosebud Atkins, who says hello, Don and Flork. And then we have Yasha, who says beautiful family, love you so much. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Rosebud says sugar scares me.
Sugar
because
scares you?
She's suddenly the headless burb, or
she's kind of a queen. You know, there is no territoriality, but she definitely is a queen.
We suspect that she's the leader of the Moluccan Mafia.
Yeah. It's a pretty loosely knit mafia, though, to tell you the truth. What are you doing?
So then we have Calvin Thurston. So welcome. And Kristen and Kelly Sukokatu are here. So hello to you.
Hello. Hello. Pippa, you want to say that's right? That's right? Oh, hi, Mander. You're back from war? You've already had a whole bunch of preening and petting. I was wondering where we were going to get a breeze. It's been, hi, come on up. It's been cooking a little bit in here. This is about the time the wind will kick up a little bit in the day if we don't have the high winds. So, hi, Mander. Hi, big boy.
Looks like we have already a story with a question to our topic today about timeout. I read the comment from Kristen. My cockatoo bit me yesterday. Timeout was necessary, but did I do the right thing? She bit me for touching her cage. She does that sometimes, and she was put in the cage she was being possessive of.
Yeah, timeouts. I'll go into timeouts a little bit in depth, but if they're in their cage, they do have a right to defend it. So you want to work so that they don't get aggressive in their cage, but it is their space, and let's face it, they don't have much space. So your best bet in that situation is probably if you just walked away. That was probably fine. It's kind of a time. We don't really call that a timeout, but it's basically it. You know, the only thing is if you're always in a situation where you walk away when they bite, then they might learn if they don't want you right there, right then, biting's the best method. So yeah, they're complicated. They can figure that out. So they can figure that out pretty quickly too. Bob used to do that. I used to put my finger in to pet him, and he'd bite my finger. But
Oh, the cockatoo of Kristen was outside the cage, not in it.
yeah, that's a place where redirecting their attention, which is basically what a timeout will work. Yeah, if you put them somewhere, if you move them to a place that it doesn't have anything to really entertain them for a couple of minutes. When I say a couple of minutes, I mean that, 1 to 2 minutes. Because after a while, they'll forget why they're there. They'll be just like, why am I sitting here? I don't want to be here. Um, so yeah, the best method if they're out of the cage is not to put them back in the cage because that may be what they want. Put them on a perch somewhere in the room that is like in a corner. If this starts happening, put a perch in a corner. So there's nothing really they can do over there. Just kind of perch with nothing on it, and leave them there for a minute or two, and then yeah, it works. You may have to do some other techniques too, but timeouting when there's a bite is not a bad thing. It's not a punishment. It's a redirection. You're getting their attention off of it, and they probably won't want to be stuck in that corner all the time. So it's a tough one though because we tend to react. It's natural for us to react to a bite. I had I had Jasmine do that to me yesterday. She wanted me to pet her, and she was in one of her hyped up moods that she gets in where if you put her on the ground, she'll go in circles, that kind of thing. She gets there sometimes, and that's how she was when I first got her. She was like a maniac from another planet, she's all over the place. So she does that once in a while. She goes back to that behavior, and I wasn't thinking, and I stopped petting her, and then she kind of nipped at me a little bit, and then I stopped petting her one more time, and then she took a little chunk out of my skin. But and it was strictly because she wanted to be petted, and she was hyped up. So at that point, I put her on the floor and let her run around for a while, let her work off some of that energy. That's another technique besides timeout, but that works too. Um, I always have a problem naming that technique because they changed it. When I learned it, it was called one thing. I don't want anybody to learn that. They've changed the name now. It's called the motivating operation. When you do something to either wear them out or get their attention so totally focused on something else that it wears them out. And basically, a motivating operation wears out the operant, the animal you're working with. So the example was in learning and behavior was a dog that kept attacking a cat. So they would take the dog out in the front yard and throw the ball until the dog, you know how they are. Some dogs will just do that and they drop. They get the dog so tired it could hardly walk, and then they bring it in the house and bring the cat out. Dog wasn't going to get up; it was dead tired. So motivating operation. But yeah, just isolating them, putting them in the room somewhere where they're not, nothing to get their attention for a minute or two will help. But we'll go into the more detail on that. What are you doing? The biting is an issue that you sometimes have to bring out the toolkit. We basically have a Swiss Army knife of toolkit and ABA. You do one thing and that doesn't work, you do another, and you've got all these. You keep observing what kind of reactions you get until you finally get a positive reaction to what you're doing. The first thing you do does not necessarily work. Sometimes it does, like with Cecil. He started messing with my arm, nipping at it to get petted. Now he just comes up and whacks me with his foot. Sometimes gently, other times he just comes up and just goes whack with his foot, like I want to be petted now. He's also doing that to other birds, which is funny. He does that to KK when he wants KK to preen him, and KK looks at him like, "What are you hitting me with your foot for?" Yeah, it was a small nip too. When she got me, it was just, and it was my fault because I knew she was hyped up, and I just stopped petting her, and you can't do that when she's hyped up. You have to, basically you have to give her a timeout. You have to redirect her attention somewhere else. Get her up on a perch where she's going to be more interested in coming over than in being petted at the moment. So get her on the floor where she can run around. A little motivating operation. It all seems so simple once you've learned it, but you learn these different techniques and the reasons behind them. But here he goes. He says, "Okay, I got my petting. I'm going to go hide back in my spot." That was a good question, though. Biting is probably the number one question. Screaming, screaming is number two, but biting is the one that most people. It's tough to deal with because it gets your emotions involved. I mean, you naturally want to run away from anything that's attacking you. I mean, it's kind of built in, but you have to learn not to do that. I'll tell you one thing. Lorelai helped me a lot with that because she doesn't like it if, when I get bitten, I will tend to, rather than you know, making a big show of anything, I'll raise my voice and, say something like, "No, don't do that." Well, Lorelai doesn't like that. So she'll fly away from me if I do that. So she's taught me not to do it. It doesn't really bother the bird I'm yelling at, but, because I'll say, "Don't do that." The bird looks at me like, "What?" Okay. Because they have loud voices. It doesn't mean anything when you yell at them. But as long as you're not showing any kind of nasty behavior as a human being, they're not going to react to a loud voice. They'll pay attention to you. They'll look at you, but oh, he's being loud. Interesting. But Lorelai has a problem with that, so she's taught me not to do it so much. So I looked at Jasmine yesterday, and I said, "Nope, not doing that." And I picked her up and I put her up on a rope. So what you doing down there? I'll see if I can see. Look at what's comments rolling because I can do it. I just have to turn the phone and it gives you a smaller picture. But that's what I get for giving her fresh food and water. Yeah, sometimes it does seem that way, but you got to look at it. It's hard to look at it from their perspective. You know, it's they don't see so much that they're putting food and water in there. You're disturbing whatever's going on in their head at the moment, and you're in their space. So once you enter that void, that space where it's their territory, then they're liable to do whatever they feel is necessary to get what they want. It's taken quite a while. I mean, I can reach into any of these birds' cages, with a few exceptions, if I have a headset on, not just the earbuds, but if I've got a cheap headset that I put on when my earbuds are drained out of power. So if I put that on and I'm not thinking and try to reach into Pippa's cage, she will push my hand out. She won't bite me, but she will push my hand out of her cage. I don't like the headset. Bob will try to kill me if I'm wearing it. Yeah. So there might have been something too. There's a thought. There might have been something that was different. The clothing you were wearing, something had changed in the room. I mean, remember Chloe freaked out if she saw a can of Rumford baking powder. So which got me to change my brand. Actually, I started using Clabber Girl instead, and I can buy the 3-pounder of that at Costco, and I go through that fairly fast. So yeah, it could be some slight change, or it just might be that there's a particular time of day, or the bird is in half asleep. They never go beyond that, but the bird's kind of half asleep.
Okay. Looks like Don has said bye-bye. Let's see. Because we talked about sugar, maybe we can do the sugar says hi video meanwhile.
Hi. 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 Hi.
Hi guys, I don't know what happened, but
Oh no, was
everything
the sugar video at the end or did you break it?
I broke it.
Okay. Poor Shirk. But I hope you all have enjoyed. Don is back again in town.
I have no idea. I just got tossed out, so I hope once I get that Starlink hooked up, I don't fall while I'm installing it and kill myself. Um, that we'll have a better connection. It does actually get a better download speed than what we're getting, so we'll see. I don't know where I was. I guess I'll just start over. What a timeout is, it's a removal of access to a positive reinforcer. In English, they're basically taking away something that they want, a positive reinforcer. So when you're doing that, for a short period, whether 1 to 2 minutes, in order to redirect the behavior. Bob, that's my arm. Hi, Pippa. Thanks, Pip. Hi, Pippa. Bob. So technically, even though you're removing something that they want, which is usually the environment that they're in, if they're sitting next to you, you're putting them over on a perch. We don't usually consider that a punishment. The term in ABA means, to reduce or extinguish a behavior. And essentially, it does have that feel to it, but it's definitely not actually, going, oh, you're a bad bird, you go in the corner. We're not doing that. Bob, you have gotten into a real habit of being a pain when I'm doing live streams. Stop it. Come here. Wear a hat. Wear a hat. Put a hat on the Bob. Put a hat on the Bob. That's a bit of a redirect too. Putting that little basket on his head because you're a basket case, Bob. So if you're ignoring the bird after it's done something, that's kind of a timeout. Um, you remove them from the place where they did it. That's another. That's you're getting them out of we call it a reinforcing context. But you're getting them out of the area where they tend to do it. If a bird tends to nip you while you're at the computer typing on the keyboard, well, you get them out of that area. So That doesn't mean that you get up and go play with them in the chair, because what you're going to do then is you're going to teach them that if they start nipping at you while you're using the computer, um, they're going to expect you to take them over to the chair and play with them. So, but put them on a perch for 1 or 2 minutes every time they do it. They'll eventually figure out this is not to my advantage. And the other thing is, don't wait. Do it immediately, because if you wait, they won't figure it out. They won't connect it. If give you an example. Let's say that you're sitting there eating a chocolate bar, and somebody comes over, grabs the chocolate bar, and runs off with it. But you forgot that you just did something 5 minutes ago to upset that person. It may not click. You may not click that the reason they stole the chocolate from you is because you turned the TV channel to something they didn't want to watch. It's just quicker with them. You have to be fast. They got to connect it. So they're smart. They will connect it. So that's part of the 3 C's, right? Got to be contingent on the behavior. So got to happen so that they can see that they're connected. That's important. And you've got to be consistent about it. If you're like putting them on a perch because they nipped you, well, don't keep doing the same thing for a good period of time, maybe a week. Depends on how frequently they're nipping at you, but don't keep trying different things until you've pretty much worn out the timeout. So you got to stick with it and see if it works. And if a week it doesn't work, then or 2 weeks, depending on how frequent it is, then you might try something else. So. And if you have a bird that's stressing out, let's say that you've been training your bird not to scream by using basically extinction, which is to ignore it and then reward another behavior. But let's say there's a hawk outside the window and you see the hawk and the bird is screaming. Don't do it then. Right? They're going to vocalize if there's a hawk. So look around to make sure they're not making that screaming sound, because there's something else in their environment that's causing it. So in other words, they're stressed. So it's one thing if they're sitting in the cage and they're screaming because you're not in the room. It's another thing if they're screaming because they're afraid of something that's in the room. Or if it's Amazon, you just put a new toy in their cage without asking, that kind of thing. That's tantamount to a felony in the human world. So if you're using a timeout for something where a bird just occasionally screams for attention, not one that's screaming for 10 minutes, but one that's screams for a good time, 30 seconds or so, when it wants your attention, you can do the timeout, which in that case would be turning away, no eye contact, no visual reaction. It's like, I didn't hear you, is the kind of way that goes. You want to make it like it didn't make an effect on you. If you turn away like, oh, I hate that, well, now you've got a reaction. So as soon as you have a reaction, they'll pick up on it. And if they're looking for a reaction, you just reinforced it. So you don't want to do that. And then go back to dealing with the bird when the sound stops. So they're squawking for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and they stop, and you turn around and oh, how are you doing? Praise the bird, and then just reset and do it again. So I already mentioned the neutral perch, but you put them on a perch for 1 to 2 minutes when they nip you. That's one method that works really well. And then return to whatever they were. If they were sitting by you, return them back to the same position after that's over. Rinse, repeat, do it again. I do this stuff all the time. So, just gets ingrained after a while. You don't even think about it. It just kind of becomes part of what you do. Right, Jasmine? I remember when the Lily Sanctuary, which is gone now, I had gone there for advice and to see how they did everything before I started the Chloe Sanctuary. I had done the paperwork, but I was waiting for the IRS to come back with the approval and all that. And they had one person was holding an Amazon, actually holding three birds, but they had an Amazon on their shoulder. Well, the Amazon flew down at another Amazon. And they went after each other, and two of the volunteers just dove in and separated them. And I looked over at Vanetta at the time, and I said, "Can I have those volunteers?" You have to imagine putting your hands between two Amazons who are going after each other. I think I'd rather do that if they were macaws than with Amazons when they're really upset. So cockatoos can be pretty tough too, but they're just turning to, they're taking charge of the situation in their life right then, and they're keeping you out of it. And a lot of times that's just to protect you. They bite you to protect you. Well, may seem odd if that's the way it works, but you think about your other relationships with humans, it's not that different. Right, Papa? Yeah, I had my first Amazon bite was I had a yellow naped Amazon, and Pepe was an interesting bird, but he was pretty much cured of all of his problems. He wasn't causing any problems, and so I was temporarily letting this veterinary office take care of him while I took in Romeo, because Romeo was just self-destructing, ripping his feathers out, and just he was a mess. And they asked me, and I didn't have room at the time to bring. I didn't have another place to put a cage, to be honest. So I took him in, and well, when I took Romeo in, and then well, I went down there because somebody wanted to. We were rehoming at the time too, so this couple wanted to take him. And so I went in there with him, and I opened the cage door without looking to see how well they'd kept that. He'd only been there a week. How well they kept that cage. Well, the food I brought wasn't in there, and the toys I brought for him weren't in there. So he came out and just tore into my arm. I have a picture of interesting wound, but um, so this place didn't even have an OSHA, an occupational health and safety. They didn't even have a cabinet where they kept, like bandages and stuff in case somebody got hurt at the veterinary office. So I finally found some bandages, some alcohol, cleaned it up, taped it up, went and took him out again. And he was fine. But he was used to living in a fancy hotel. He was at the Hilton, and then he's at a Motel 6, and he was not happy. So I figured it out. I saw what they were doing, and I was glad that they took him that day. They both loved him, and he's still with those folks. They have four different species at their home, but four birds. And they travel around. They travel around in an RV that they have all set up for the birds. So
I love that background sounds. Yeah, it's chilly. Just sitting there, relaxing, watching some very busy birds. Jasmine.
yeah, she's determined. She's already killed one end of that rope. Now she's trying to kill this end. I'll be putting a new rope in here pretty soon. She's doing a pretty good job, aren't you?
Hmm.
So with her, well, in here, if she were to get, she hasn't really done this, but if she gets out of control, I have another cage outside here, so I can take her, put her in that cage, which is just an isolation cage. There's nothing in it. And put her in there for no more than 2 minutes, and bring her back in here, and she won't. I can almost guarantee that behavior will be done. She'll just blend back in and go normal. So sometimes that's the kind of timeout you need if you have a bunch of birds that you've got out at once, and one of them gets a little out of control. Or if you've got the bird in the room and you've got 3 or 4 people in there, the bird starts to run around like it's going to nip everybody. Just put them in a room where there's nothing to do for 2 minutes and bring them out. Bring them back in. They'll be fine. 9 times out of 10, anyway. There's always that one, right, Bob? You're the one. I don't know how many of you figured out that anagram, but Neo in the Matrix is just an anagram for one. The one. I have to throw in something about movies, right? I don't have a choice. Just how it works.
Yeah. We know you love movies. We do too.
What's funny is I don't watch them anymore. I don't have time to watch a movie. And Romeo prefers, if I take Romeo out by his cage where the TVs are, right? It's two, the TV for the one room and the TV for the other. They're tied together. But if I try to sit there for more than a couple of minutes, then Cause will start going rat, rat, rat. She'll just start squawking because she wants attention too. So I have to take him back to the socialization room. So if I want to watch a movie, I'd have to do it on my phone while I'm sitting with the birds, and I'm usually too busy for that. I've been trying to watch on occasion that series, the British series, not the American series, the House of Cards, which is tons better than the American one. And I think I made it to episode 2 halfway through, and this has been like 3 weeks. So it's when they're all sleeping and nobody wants to be petted, and I'm like, oh well, okay. I don't feel like working on the phone, then I'll do that. But if you're trying to bust that, just trying to take that strap off there. That's a pretty tough zip tie, but I'm sure you can bust it. If you don't bust it, she'll just take all the threads out. Okay, what timeouts shouldn't be? They should not be isolation for extended periods. You're not going to put them in solitary confinement. Throw a cover over their cage, and leave them there for 4 hours. If you're going to do that, let me know so you can get a job at Guantanamo or someplace like that. Because that's not how you should treat a bird. So they are not that. Um, and you don't want to use it if you don't understand what the bird's trying to do. So if the bird's trying to bite you, you don't necessarily know why, what the focus reason for it is, but 9 times out of 10, if you're being nipped, it's either because they're in their cage and they don't want you in there, or they're outside their cage and they want your attention. Or you've changed your appearance, that kind of thing. I haven't done anything. Well, why is your hair red today and yesterday it was brown? Um, those things apply. So you want to try to figure out why it's happening. And you still have to give positive reinforcement. So when you get the bird back over there and the bird's behaving well, that's when you want to say good bird. Not to these birds, since I use bird when I call them by their name and the word bird after it. If I say good bird, then that's a secondary reinforcer. Primary one is when I hand you a piece of candy, right? Here's a Snickers bar, or whatever you like. That's a primary reinforcer. A secondary one is when I walk by your desk and go, good job. So if I paired that before with the candy, um, then the next time I say good job and I don't have to hand you anything because you're going to associate it with the candy I gave you. So that's how it works. Same for them, right, Cecil? So you want to pair it. Parrot. That's a good one. You want to pair it. You want to pair it with positive reinforcement. So use the Cecil example again. If you got a bird that wants attention and it's nipping you because it wants attention, you teach it to do something else. And I was doing choking here. There's no humidity, so my voice is almost gone. Um, I can't bring water or anything out here because they'll find some way to kill me with it. A water bottle would be, oh boy, we got something fun to play with now. Poke holes in it, be like a sprinkler in here. But what I did is scan and capture. That's when you look for a type of behavior you want, and then you capture it. Right? You do that with training to talk as well. That's how Pippa learned to say that's right. Scan and capture. So when Cecil started, as soon as he tapped me with his foot, I immediately started petting him. So after he did that about 3 times, he figured out, oh, I could just tap him. And then after that, for the first week, it was constantly tapping me. And of course, I responded to everyone, even when I was in a position where I'm dealing with another bird, he's tapping me, I would do it. Because I wanted him to maintain that behavior, and he does. Now he's trying to teach KK to respond to it. So. Pippa, that's my shoulder you're going on. That's my shoulder.
So, may I read a comment to you?
Of course.
So, meanwhile, let's see. Meanwhile, Giselle joined us in chat. So, welcome, Giselle Loves New York. And then I wanted to read a comment from Kristen who says, I feel bad because Kelly doesn't have a flock. Is that causing her emotional distress? And no, I have no intention of getting another cockatoo because I want to focus on learning Kelly.
Yeah, you don't do another cockatoo until you're dead sure that you can handle it, and that takes a long time. I mean, it wasn't easy for me either. So, and even with the training, so you're doing the right thing there. You don't want to get another one. Um, and sometimes it doesn't work out all that well. I mean, if you get another one, they may not like each other. You know, I could find somebody. I could pull somebody off the street and say, "Hey, I want you to come here and hang out with Kelly." you know, you might not like that very much. So no, that's the right thing to do. Wait until you feel comfortable, and when you get another bird, you're doing it for that bird. And then you're going to, you have to make a determination. No matter what, I'm going to make this work out. Even if it means that you have to take them out separately, they absolutely despise each other, so you have to take them out separately. You can eventually work it where they can at least get along close enough. Bob, stop it. See, Bob and Pippa don't get along, and so
That's the thing with getting another cockatoo. It's not like in nature where they are born into a flock and these birds are, a lot of them at least, related to you and you know them from birth, and therefore you get some relations while you get a completely stranger bird or so. It might also feel for the cockatoo like being thrown in a cell with another prisoner, just as a picture. Of course, we don't know how parrots feel. Sometimes they love the new one, but it also can be rather stressing. So it's difficult to maintain the
Bob.
flock feeling for them in captivity with other birds. So it's really important for them to socialize then with you.
Yeah, and you don't know. I remember there was one guy who had a couple of he had an Amazon, and he was saying, "Oh, I felt really sorry for the bird, so I got him another one." And he did the worst thing he could do. He put the two birds in the same cage. And he said, "Now they won't even. Neither one of them will pay attention to me." It's like, yeah, they're married. What do you expect? So that can happen too. I mean, you get a strong relationship. That happened with Chloe. Chloe and
Mm.
I had a real strong bond, but we're not the same species. And when Snowball came along, that was all over. After that, Chloe was fine with me. I mean, but she didn't come running when I was working out on the stepping machine anymore. She was only interested in Snowball. Snowball has never lost his interest in me. He liked me around Chloe, and he did that, but he was always treated me the same, but not Chloe. So that's another thing. You feel sorry, and the next thing you know, it's like, well. And then if you stop giving them any attention, then you can end up with some really bad attention, bad behaviors from lack of attention to not having that human connection. So they got to remain because to be able to survive in our world, they have to be able to deal with humans. So good on you for thinking ahead on that one. You can feel. If, I'll tell you, if you're really feeling sad that that your bird does not have any companions, watch a few prison movies, and that'll change your mind. As you see,
Yeah, you know I
you see
love
the.
prison movies.
I know you do. Yeah, she runs her own prison. This person here.
I do, of course, just as a video game. But that's yeah,
Yeah, you can say Warden Babalu too. That's Warden Babalu you're talking to.
yeah. And
What are
it's
you doing?
really funny the inmates, aren't they, Bob?
Yeah, it is true though. I mean, I'm not really kidding. If you sit down and watch a couple of prison movies and you watch these people thrown into these cells that don't get along with each other,
Yes,
and
when
then
when
even
when
the
you
ones,
have to be with someone else you don't know before or so, and then being thrown with them within really tight space. I mean, that's the situation for birds. Our living room or the cage or so are basically for them super small compared to what they are built for, like the whole rainforest.
yeah, well, like in that video, Parrot Confidential, one of these rescuers said someone asked what would be the right size cage for this bird, and the answer was, oh, about 40 miles by 40 miles.
Mm.
And then if you look at Mander, okay, look at him. Now he's a Moluccan, and the other two Moluccan females here want nothing to do with him. If he was in a cage with one of them, I would not be surprised if he got seriously injured or killed. I have to watch the interactions out here to make sure.
Mm.
They pretty much don't bother him now, but I mean, for a while there, it was touch and go. So, and
Mm.
I do not leave Sugar out here with him either. Sugar has to go in first, or Mander, and sometimes Mander will force his way out. I want out now if you're leaving.
Yeah, yeah, sugar has developed into rowdy sugar lately.
And it's funny, I have a lot in common with Mander because I was raised by the television set when I was smaller. My dad was working long hours trying to, and my mother was usually just let me do, kind of let me watch TV. So I didn't develop the social skills. And people say, "Oh, you do in live stream, you must have social skills." Are you kidding? I don't. But so I feel for him because I understand he doesn't know what to do and he can't seem to do anything that pleases those two. So,
Mm.
but it can end up like that. You can end up with a situation where they just can't tolerate each other, or they like each other too much, and then they won't tolerate you, and so you have to work with them. Now, right now, Mander's being a little aggressive. I think if you can see this, he doesn't want to do that. He really doesn't, because what
Mm.
he's doing is like blocking Jasmine so Jasmine can't get by him, that's not going to work in the long term. So I have to keep an eye on it.
The thing is, some species are certainly a little bit more easy than cockatoos. So all the larger parrots, I mean, they are just bigger, therefore you can provide not much space for them. So and then they are in large flocks, but compared, for example, to budgies, so they are in super small flocks. So with budgies, I had always the experience that how big the flock is. So when there comes a new budgie, basically the whole flock hangs at the side and wants to meet the new one. So mm, they look rather agreeable. I mean, there might be some issues with hand-raised budgies. I don't know much about them since that's rather uncommon here in Germany, luckily. So
Yeah,
most of them are socialized.
you want to think about hand raised parrots like Dr. Frankenstein, right? Dr. Frankenstein created a monster because that's pretty much what happens. You know, it's Dr. When you raise a bird by hand, it doesn't know its parents, it doesn't know what it is, and once it reaches sexual maturity, look out because it won't know what to do with all those urges, and it has no place good to place them. So just think of it as what it's like to be around a teenager going that through that kind of thing, and multiply it about 1,000 times. So we have these Dr. Frankensteins out there breeding these guys and for money, and unfortunately, um, they don't get along well. In a flock where they grew up in the flock, they're part of it. Things go pretty well. I mean, it's just natural for that. I'm sure the Moluccans still, they still have to stretch their wings out and make sure there's enough social distancing between one and the next. But where the umbrellas just say social distancing, what is that? And they, roll around in a ball. Um, but the Moluccans are like, yeah, well, we have just enough social distancing over here. If you notice, Bob, that's my elbow. Yes, I know I'm using the phone.
I just got the idea we could explain that with quantum theory.
Okay, explain it. I like to hear that.
There is the difference between bosons and fermions, and the difference in these particles is that some, like the fermions, they can basically not overlap or not be in the same state. Therefore, they have to distribute all in different states. For example, when you have the every purge is a state, then the Moluccans are fermions, and therefore they have to be everyone on his own purge. While bosons, I say, they can perfectly be all in one state. So I just thought when the umbrellas are piling up, also, okay, I see similarities.
There you go. There is some similarity there. You and Richard Feynman would have had fun talking to each other.
Yeah, Parrot quantum theory. So, but maybe I read some more interesting comments because let's see. Kristen was saying, yeah, she is binge watching all of your videos and learning every day. Then she has an Indian ringneck, and Kelly is annoyed by him, so they are kept apart at all times. I think Kelly is a Molotov cockatoo, so an Indian ringneck, yeah. Well, and Giselle tells that her Amazon yells at the cockatoo to stop it when he starts screeching. That's funny. But that looks to me like exactly what an Amazon would do.
Bob, stop it.
The
They just,
Amazon lives
yeah.
there, yeah, for 35 years and the cockatoo for 3 years. Yeah, sometimes there shows a newbie up and then you're annoyed.
Murray used to say "good grief" whenever the cockatoos were doing stuff. They started acting up. I'm sure what I would have seen is when if he could have seen if she could have seen um, Jasmine doing her gymnastics, it would have been good grief, good grief. She couldn't believe the behavior of the cockatoos, and she made it well known. She was okay with them. She used to sit next to Peaches, but everybody. Oh, thank you. I can't imagine why you're touching me.
Oh, Cecil came over to touch you since all the Moluccans sitting back there and training.
Bob, stop it.
Yes, but she has had parakeets as a child, and her college roommate had a parrot, but the parrot never liked her. I'm so sorry about that. But when I was a really young child, I was somehow afraid of that really big parrots. Like I've never met a cockatoo, but I met regularly an macaw, and to me that bird was just terrifying. It always looked at me like it plans to eat me.
It's funny how you perceive things. You see it that way. Um, I never saw it that way with parrots, but
And the
that
thing
I
is,
can
he was
recall, I
on a
just
perch, and basically the perch was taller than I was at that time, and he sat on that, and he it just resembled huge. And then the look they have, so he was really peering at me, so I didn't dare to just go near it.
well, they're all striped. All the stripes make them look like they just came out of jail too. So
Now they're
yeah,
beautiful, lovely birds.
well they are, but when you're young, you react to things
Yeah,
on a
I
gut
was really
level.
young, 3 or 4 years old, so for that what was to me. So, but how shall I always loved animals, but I also was a little shy about most of them, like also dogs or cats and so, because I have had pets and that always were budgies. With them, I always were big bad and fine. So I don't know.
Yeah, and
I'm a
it's
bud.
different how you deal the way you deal with different animals. Like with dogs, the way I had a thing about most dogs. I was not fond of them when I was a child, so I overcame the way I overcame it was taking karate classes, and one of the things they taught us was how to deal with a dog that's attacking you, and um, and after that, I didn't have problems with dogs anymore. It was because I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Because once you've taken karate and you know actually, and they've taught you how to deal with a dog, no dog is a threat to you. So why that then all the dogs like me now. So, but before I got looks from dogs like this guy's afraid of me because they're with dogs you've got that alpha thing going. That
That's the thing. For a lot of animals, you make yourself suspicious when you when you behave afraid. I think not only to dogs but also to horses and probably bears and I don't know what around. So just don't.
yeah, one of the rangers at a place where I was learning to be a docent. I actually was a docent there for a while in a wildlife preserve, and she was she was leaning up against a tree, and she looked up, and there was a wildcat, you know, looking right at her, not more than like 2 feet away, just looking at her, and she wasn't afraid of it. And they kind of sat there for a while. Then the cat wandered off. But if you were to take off running or show fear, when you're dealing with parrots, they don't have a pecking order. There's no dominance there, so you don't want to act like an alpha. I'm the big tough guy. You don't want to do that. That's not the way you deal with a parrot, because all they see that is you're a threat. They only see you as a threat. They don't see. They'll either try to fly away or try to get away from you if they can. Um, or
Mm.
if they can't get away, then if you've got fight or flight and you don't have flight, then you're going to attack out of fear. But this big guy scares people. I see him and it's like, oh, I just go, come on, you're not wearing a hat, you don't have a beer, so he's not going to bother you. walk out with a Lowenbrow and a red ball cap on and see what happens. But right, right. Well, don't forget we do have some wonderful merchandise that Amy created. That's out at our you can see it through our link tree. Can't talk today.
Okay.
No, I can't talk. I mean, there's so little moisture in the air. I can't. My sinuses are dry. I can't talk. This is probably
You really need a
the
drinking bottle. How about a Lixit? Don't
yeah, it'd have to
so
be a pretty big
just for
Lixit
you.
bottle, and as long as I can keep them from sharing, yeah,
Mm.
you can't have anything out of any human mouth. But maybe there's some way I can come up with water because we have a really dry.
Or you
We got at
just,
least a
I don't
couple.
know, have a bottle outside the aviary and go outside and drink a bit and come in back.
Oh yeah, I'll have all of them staring at me, going, "Well, where's mine? Where's mine?" But that's an idea. Hey, watch it. I don't know. You didn't mean to pull a feather too hard. We got Cecil preening sugar, so
Mm.
if he pulls a little too hard for her, she cries. But he's pretty good
Oh,
at preening her,
gee,
though.
you little matriarch. How about training back?
Yeah, yeah.
Echo.
Well, the Lord does not dole out much except peanuts to the slaves, right? To the serfs. Well, thank you all, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next week. I hope. And maybe by then I'll have my sinuses back where they're working. What do you think, huh, big boy? What do you think, big boy?
Yeah,
So
we're
I'll
done. We're doing the live stream, showing the
thank
birds to
you.
us, answering the questions.
Thank you, Amy. And I think I will go to my media, and on the way out, I will play that video we didn't get to finish because I came back in. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, Amy, for your wonderful assistance in moderating, for being here and listening to me sniffle with with no nasal passages. So here we go. Here is Sugar.
Hi. 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 Hi.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
If Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a non-profit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.